right, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About This. My guest today is Sandy Sembler. Sandy is a woman's embodiment expert, and she weaves richly embodied life experience, feminine and masculine dynamics, and trauma-informed somatics into SakredShe Method, guiding the modern day woman to liberate her past unapologetically, reclaim and rewild her powerful, unique voice and intuition, and step out of the shadows to light up the world with her fullest expressions. Welcome to the podcast.
I love how that is like, I hear that. I'm like, oh yes, that is who I am. I love it. Thank you.
Yes. I was thinking the same thing when I read it. I was like, man, was she thinking about me when she wrote this? Because I'm telling you, I feel like one of those people who are actually stepping into the light,
Yes, yes.
Especially after the last couple of years, I've been going through some changes, but I didn't let it stop me. I'm one of those people who don't let life keep me down, I guess you could say. Sometimes you got to dust yourself off and get back up, and you got to keep going. You know what I mean?
Well, I want to say, first off, thank you for that introduction and having me here. And like I said, on my travels last week, I was like binging on some of your content, and I always want to give props where they're due. I've been on a guest in a lot of different spaces, and they're all wonderful. And I can also have this gift of intuiting into someone and feeling the energy. And you are who you say you are, for sure. So as soon as you popped on a few minutes ago and I met you, I was like, wow, what a presence. So yeah, and again, and we said this as we were saying hello, is how we do anything is how we do everything. So I'm imagining that even before you had your accident, you had this impetus to launch this podcast, that you were a woman who, if the dream is big enough, the facts don't count. You would figure out a way to make things happen. What I like, though, is that as I help people collapse time, energy, and money, and heartbreak sometimes, that I'm able to use my life's experiences, my wisdom, to be able to help people in life, love, and also with money, right? So you and I, essentially, we do it's like the two sides of the same coin.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. They all relate together, they all come together. So tell me about the sacred method that you use as far as helping people, guiding people through all those different things.
Well, SakredShe was born essentially from my own healing journey. I think that we are here on Earth School. I didn't love school growing up, but I sure as heck must love Earth School, because I'm doing it, and I'm doing it well, and I'm doing it I've done it the hard way. Right. And my goal now is with grace and ease for my best and highest good. And so, everything that I've gone through, I've allowed it to be my dharma. I've allowed myself to alchemize it and then learn from some of the best teachers, the best mentors. Sometimes that is myself being my best student, and then I'm able to package it all together and then bring it back to the masses. And, I believe in sisterhood just like you. And I had a dear friend, Rachel, who passed away in 2020 very suddenly. And she was really that light for me, where she loved me firmly. She didn't let me get away with my own BS. She would literally just bring things to me that other people would have maybe ignored, because they didn't want to lose my friendship or lose my love, or they didn't want to deal with it, quite frankly. She was somebody who really taught me, her and my friend Donna Kay, who I grew up with, the art of unconditional love, and also telling it like it is, even if it isn't pretty. Because I know for myself, I jokingly would say I had the gift to manifest anything. Like, I can make anything happen. It wasn't until I leaned into surrendering into what those two precious women that are my dear sisters. Donna's still here with me. Rachel is not. But her legacy lives on through SakredShe. So SakredShe is the combination of all of my teachings that I've learned, through the years, but especially in the last decade, since I had an intervention with Tony Robbins, the motivational speaker. I was at one of his events. I raised my hand, and then 4.5 hours later, I was faced with everything Rachel and Donna had been telling me, but in the form of a 6'7" man who was letting me know that I was showing up as a very masculine woman who was living in trauma and trying to prove something to the world, because my daddy left at an early age. And I was like, And so that's when the masculine feminine energetics came into my business world. And, I've owned lots of businesses and sold them and consulted and helped women, get on their feet with businesses, but also in relationships. And I was like, wow, when I took a step back and I
Mm-hmm.
looked, say, how many women do I know actually have created what they thought they wanted?
Mm-hmm.
Growing up as a little girl, like I want to have this, I want to do this, I want to be this, but they actually aren't fulfilled and satisfied inside.
Mm.
And I was one of those, I could
Me,
raise my hand, right?
me too.
Yep, yep. And when
Yep.
I went deeper in, I've got like God bumps all over my body, like goosebumps. And I was like, I'm mentoring all these women around the world, and they all have similarly the same complaint. They don't have enough time, they don't feel appreciated, they don't feel seen, they don't feel understood. And in some instances, they didn't feel safe in their partnership. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean just in an abusive situation, but I mean they they were some undercurrent of a fear or a limiting belief that they couldn't quite put their finger on. It's like an itch that you just can't scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Right.
I'm like, all right, I'm the woman for the job. I'll go learn and then let me bring it back to you. And so
Mm-hmm.
every heartbreak, every hiccup, every, bad financial decision, every walk of shame I've ever done, I basically am like, you know what? I'm gonna spit shine myself, look myself in the mirror. I know God's got me. And if I have to be the one to be bold and share about it, then I
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
not always easy, right?
It's not.
We have that voice in our head that's always telling us, "What are you doing? Who do you think
Right.
you are? Who's going to
Yep.
listen to you?"
Mm-hmm.
And we have to go, "Hey, you ego mind, I love you. Thank you for trying to protect me. You go sit over there. I've got
Mm.
work to do."
That's right.
Um, so that's really the method comes from the different steps to basically become she who is sacred she, which is a woman who unapologetically walks in her power and also understands her surrender. Because our
Mm-hmm.
surrender is just as powerful as our, let's go get it done. And it
Right.
really is the symbiotic balance and harmonization of the masculine go mode and
Mm-hmm.
the feminine flow mode. And when
Mm-hmm.
we have both of those that work like
Mm-hmm.
this and they flow like this,
Yep.
life becomes very abundant in
Mm-hmm.
joy, emotion, but also in, whatever's important to you that pays the bills. I mean,
Right.
it's abundance comes in a lot of different ways. It's not just in cash money.
Right. Yeah. And that's true because sometimes we live in a world where all this technology and everything is so fast. Everybody is moving fast and we think we got to move fast too cuz I started feeling like that. I
Yes.
felt like, man, I need to go with the flow. Everybody's moving fast, but then I said, you know what? It became a little bit too chaotic for me. So I
Yes.
was like, you know what? Let me just stay on my path, on my journey and do things that works best for me instead of doing things that works best for the systematic way that society has it set up, and it's
Well, sure. I have a
Mhm.
question for you too. May I ask you a question?
Oh, go
I
ahead.
think I always like to ask people like what their love story is with their business, not necessarily with their partner. Like your love story with the podcast you mentioned to me was you had an accident and you made the best of it. Do you
Mhm.
think that you had the same mindset before that that go 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 you thought you were keeping up with the Joneses kind of a thing? The my words, not yours. That changed once you had the accident, or had you already had that realization afterwards or before? Excuse me.
Oh, well, I think I had it, after my accident, the mindset that I don't think I had the mindset that I have now.
Okay.
Because the mindset I had before was more so just get up, go to a 9 to 5, get paid, pay bills, come home, and do the normal things. The podcast kind of changed my life along with the accident. It kind of, it made me aware of myself where I
Sure.
wasn't aware of myself before, and it changed me as far as like how I perceive things now, a little different. So, yeah,
For
that,
the better. So but are you, would you, I like to call it effectively blaming. Are you able to actually look at that accident and go, I would have rather been a different way, but I can see the gifts from it?
yep,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, I could see the gifts. There was it. I had to say to myself because I almost could have been killed, and I said, you know what? It wasn't my time yet, and God gave me a purpose, and He revealed to me what the purpose was,
I love it.
and yeah, and this is the purpose. through my struggles of mental health, and being that it ran through my family, I said, you know what, I need to help other people who are struggling with the same things, because we need to
Amen.
make this more of an open conversation.
Yes.
People are scared to talk about it.
Mhm.
I didn't even understand it until I started educating myself about it. So
Wow.
yeah, it's all about giving back, and that's where I get my fulfillment, is giving back, rather than always making it about myself. You
Sure. I mean, it is something, right? I actually was
Yeah.
talking to some people over the weekend about, or maybe it was my last, when I was a guest, about self-care. Self-care for me is so different after some things I went through this past year. And, I used to think self-care was, especially teaching the feminine, is like
Mhm.
flowers. I've got a candle here and a
Mhm.
sheepskin and a bubble bath. But to me, when I really boiled it down, I started
Mhm.
thinking about what lights me up. What lights me up when I even think about it?
Mhm.
And then when I go there, I think about being here with you. And I'm not kissing up to you. Like you look at me, I'm like lit up like a Christmas tree, like my cheeks hurt. I love meeting new people and teaching about this work and
Mhm.
educating people. And if I can help one person, one
Mhm.
woman especially, go an inch wider in consciousness, an inch deeper in her feminine expression, and they
Mhm.
can show up and know that they get permission to feel what they feel, and that
Mhm.
they will feel and they will heal, and they can
Mhm.
somatically run that through their body, then you know what? Then everything I went through was worth it. And I have a feeling you're in the same boat.
Oh yeah, definitely in the same boat. Yeah, because I don't know where that comes from, with us feeling like we don't have to permission to express ourselves, the way that we want to.
Well,
Um,
you want to get
it's
really
just
good there? I'll tell you my thoughts
yeah,
about that. I
yeah.
mean,
Tell me your thoughts about that, because I always wonder why us women feel that way. Why we feel like we have to put ourselves on the back burner for some
well,
reason.
yeah, I actually think, because the feminine and masculine energetics, right, and which I know we'll talk about here, it's not gender specific. So I'll actually speak about this and we can riff on it. I love this conversation. Is I actually don't think it's just women. I think it's just easier because we've been the target. The more I get to know men, remember, I studied men. I studied 100 men for 1 year for one of my certifications. And so I really got to know how they work. And I'm talking about, men that are just regular men. And I got
Right.
to, that was a gift. I think it's really more the feminine energy. Because remember, the feminine, we want to be seen, heard, understood, and feel safe. And,
Mm-hmm.
and the feminine is about full expression in all of us, in all of us. And that is why if you see like a man who's more homosexual, he may be a little bit more flamboyant because there might be a little bit more feminine energy that he may have, right? But
Mm-hmm.
even in same-sex relationships, what I've seen in couples is that there's always going to be somebody who's more masculine, more feminine. Now,
Mm-hmm.
back to what you shared, like why are we holding back our emotions and why we feel like we can't express it? Well, from the feminine standpoint, is that we want to be accepted. We want to be seen. And if we stand out, if we haven't healed that shadow, then
Mm-hmm.
if we stand out, we're scared. The primal part of the brain that we'll get eaten by the saber-toothed tiger. The
Mm-hmm.
mean girls will come attack us. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
won't be chosen for the thing,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. I mean, it's so base, and it generally starts as a child, these different limitations. Now, obviously, we can talk
Mm-hmm.
about the patriarchal society and all that stuff, but we won't go into that. I
Right.
mean that actually, because the feminine intuition, and this is why if we had more men, girl, if we had more men who had healed their own feminine energy,
Mm.
and more women who healed their own masculine,
Mm-hmm.
then we would have women that are boundaried. They would know their yeses and their nos because the masculine is, see, is our
Mm-hmm.
boundaries, right?
Right.
It's our boundary.
Exactly.
And, and
Yeah.
then and then the feminine, though, in all of us is our intuition. It is our
Mm-hmm.
inner knowing of what's right, what's wrong, what's needed in the moment. Does that person need a hug, or do they need like a high five? Do they need like, girl, what are you doing? I mean,
Right.
that's why the feminine is the oracle for the more masculine of the partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is the depth of the work that I teach. And girl, I grew up Southern Baptist in South Carolina. This stuff was
Mm-hmm.
not taught to me at all.
Right.
My
Right.
mom raised me after daddy left when I was 12 to, God bless her. She was trying to protect me, but you don't need a man. Take care of yourself.
Mm.
And that all that did was instill in me a really strong work ethic. So I can thank my daddy. Thank you for leaving us. And I have a really strong work ethic now
Right.
because I've been working since I was 12. And mom, I know you were trying to protect me. But it also didn't teach me about the juiciness of life. And
Right.
I grew up back to what you were sharing, like hiding what I was feeling and not being fully expressed like I am now, because I thought that if I stood out in a crowd that I would be a target to get hurt. I'd
Right.
be a target to, and that's really what it boils down to. And I'll mention that, since I mentioned, the feminine wants to be seen, heard, understood, and feel safe. The masculine in all of us we do not want to be criticized. We don't want to be controlled. And we don't want to feel a closure of energy. So if we're talking about a man and woman, a hetero relationship, which is what I'm in, so that's what I speak to mostly,
Right.
is what does a woman do when she's pissed off and upset? We criticize, we complain, and we close off our energy.
Yeah.
Which is really what the moment is being called for. If you want to show up as a devotional, partner in love, is to actually express your emotion, maybe even your disgust, with an ouch or an ooh or something like that, versus withholding. Because the more masculine partner is really, they're wanting generally a more fuller expression.
Right.
There's going to be many, many men. And also, before I started doing this work, I had a very unhealed masculine energy where I couldn't take a lot of emotion, because my mom was highly emotional growing up. She was
Oh.
very, very unreliable. And like, we never quite knew who was coming home after work. And Mom, I love you for listening to this, but she's giving me permission to talk about it. So I, of course, gauged my emotions, because we didn't know, if we didn't do the vacuum cleaner marks right, if she was going to like withhold her love.
Right.
Seriously, right? It wasn't just like a spanking. It was like she was pissed. So those little brains of ours are going like, well, do you love me? Okay, if I do this, will you love me? So again, that masculine part of us is, for me, I didn't appreciate women. That's why I had topical friendships growing up, because I didn't like to be around very feminine women, because it evoked something inside of me of they're unstable. But actually, the feminine is, even her messiness is actually beautiful. So the more that we can do some of the somatic work that I teach in the SakredShe Method and the programs, is the more that the masculine in all of us can hold more. And that's why I'll share this too, and let's drop this here to this conversation. Mothering is actually quite masculine. Did you do your work? Did you fold your clothes? Get in the car. It's very commanding and directive. But we're talking about the art of mother. It's love.
Right.
And anytime we see a man, a daddy playing with their kids, even football, rugby, soccer, any play is actually feminine. That's why women are like, oh, look at him washing the car with his, his son, or bathing the kids or whatever. It's because we're into his heart, because we want more men who are in touch with their beautiful heart, right? And we want more women who don't think they have to go shoulder to shoulder with men to actually compete. Actually, it's our essence alone sometimes, and that can actually drive us forward. So it really is this symbiotic relationship. So I teach masculine, feminine energetics a lot differently than some other people out there, because I like to actually bring in the everyday woman and man, not just those that are in goddess circles dancing in Sedona, and the ponytail dudes. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love them too.
Right.
But for me, back to you, is that we want to make the most impact. And there's more women who are everyday women, picking up kids from school, PTA, boardrooms, 9 to 5, whatever it is. And if I can help them get deeper into their body and be able to understand not only their men, but their little boys, but also their little girls. And let us go back to a little more traditional values, and to some degree, with also all the gifts that we know that women are, we're powerful, and we need to stay in power too, right?
Yeah. That's true. That is so true. And I like what you said about men being in touch with their feminine side, because some men feel like it's not masculine to cry or to show their feelings, and they don't understand that's a part of being human. We're all human. We're supposed to cry. I see my son cry a lot of times, and I'm glad he does, because he's letting those emotions out. Instead of we walk that, you see a lot of men that walk around and holding those emotions in, and then sometimes it could backfire
Yes.
to somebody else, so it's important to express yourself. Yeah.
And what do we do? We actually, here in the States, especially, we've institutionalized in the sense of like what school is, and we've drugged our kids up with all the things. And we need our kids to go play. It's energy. They're kids. They're supposed to be playing,
Right.
right? What do they would take away? PE. Why? I mean,
Right.
it's fascinating to me when we just get down to brass tacks of
Mm-hmm.
the science behind us as humans, because it crying is not a masculine quality. So I will state that. But a
Mm-hmm.
man who is man enough to know that his feminine energy is quite delicious to the
Mm-hmm.
world is actually where it's at. Now, I will
Mm-hmm.
say this too, and John and I, my husband and I, have a reel on Instagram. It's like, how do we hold space for our masculine partner? Now, if we had our man blubbering all the time,
Mm-hmm.
let's just be honest.
We don't want that.
He's like bawling and squalling and bitching and complaining, and it's like that's not going to be very
It
polarizing.
can't be two of us around here doing that.
Exactly. Like, come on. But there's a
Yeah.
way you can literally set an egg timer, set a timer on your iPhone, and go,
Mm-hmm.
okay, baby, 10 minutes. Let it
Right.
roll. And let him rant. Let him have a good old "meh," and
Yeah.
cheer him on. And then when it's done,
Mm-hmm.
take a little bow. The practice is over. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful way that we can actually hold space for our partner. I'll send
Mm-hmm.
so you can take a look. It's actually quite fun. Also something I realized after my intervention with Tony, I was a single mom, which, hey, shout out to the single moms and the single dads, because we're
That's
holding
right.
both the masculine and the feminine containers.
That's true.
And the last thing we're thinking about, and I say this to the men as well, is kicking back and relaxing, because as soon as the kids go to bed, we're doing all the other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we have to be intentional with the practices that we have. And I say practices, I mean like the practice of life,
Right.
but softening practices and taking time for our self practices. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but when I was a single mom, and I was for most of my son's career with me, I'll call it,
Right.
he saw me struggle a lot in relationship. He saw me, I was a hustler. I worked hard for what I have and accumulated, a lot of things, a lot of financial safety,
Mm-hmm.
which came from my childhood wounds, right? They came from my childhood wounds. I was like, I'm never going to have a house that forecloses on my son, because that's what happened to us. I'm
Mm-hmm.
never going to have him move all over the place, because that's what happened to us.
Right.
And so a lot of our motivation is actually brought forth from our trauma, whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
little T or a big T. And
Mm-hmm.
so I like to work with that whenever women come to me. And then of course, if I'm working with couples, you better believe we're studying attachment styles, and what does love look like for you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about money too, all the
Mm-hmm.
things, because even though that's not super sexy, you better believe it's the first thing that's going to affect what happens in the bedroom. It
Mm-hmm.
how do you solve a conflict?
That's
So yeah,
true.
yeah, being a single mom was interesting, because I realized too is how much I was emasculating my own son. Because
Mm.
anytime and listen, men can emasculate men as well,
Right.
but for whatever reason, it's the way men, in some ways, that they cheer each other on, like putting each other down. Women,
Mm-hmm.
we don't work that way. It hurts us, because we're more feminine being in our core. And I think Kelsey gave you the quiz for your audience, so they can take that to see what is their core energy. Just because
Mm-hmm.
you and I are women doesn't mean
Right.
that we'll test that way. I know
Right.
for me, when I showed up in the scene 11 years ago, raised my hand with Tony, I was a very masculine woman, and I tested masculine. But there's a way that you can shift that. Obviously, talking to me now, you can tell I'm quite feminine. And when I'm
Mm-hmm.
teaching, all the knowledge is from the masculine that knows that these things need to be said. So there is an agenda in
Mm-hmm.
the midst of the artful way that I'm expressing it. But
Mm-hmm.
something I really wanted to make sure that we stressed on our call today was, that emasculating the men in our life, and for any of your men audience, understand you can do this as well. Anytime that we tell a boy or a man, like, we undercut their direction, we undercut their leadership. That's not
Mm-hmm.
right. That's not what you said. That's not the way we're supposed to go.
Right.
And we don't allow them the gift of actually serving us. How many times have you had someone try to open the door or help you with your suitcase
Mm-hmm.
in the airplane? You're like, oh, I got it.
Yep.
So he's robbing him of an opportunity for a testosterone boost
Mm-hmm.
naturally, where
Right.
he can actually be the hero, even for
Mm-hmm.
those little 6-year-olds who want to help us with the groceries. And we're like, oh God, they're going to break the spaghetti sauce. But we
Mm-hmm.
just robbed them of an opportunity to be our little man.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I really am a big advocate for Sacred Respect, which is one of our mini courses that we have that helps you heal your own inner masculine.
Yeah.
Also, because we need that too, to then to be able to appreciate the masculine out there in the world.
Yeah.
Because to become our own husband, to become our own midwife, to be able to know, how do we even want to be loved? How do we
Mm.
want to be cared for?
That's true. That's true. Because we get so, and it's not like we purposely do that, like for instance, like you brought up the example where we won't let the guy open the door for us or whatever. It's just that I know in my situation, I have been so independent for so long and had to do things for so long that it just became natural for me to just
Right.
and then I have to forget. So I have to check myself sometimes and be like,
Right.
okay, let me let him open up the door. So, let me let him be that gentleman that he wants to be,
Yeah.
And like you said, a lot of things come from, our childhood, that we start to ingrain in ourselves and we forget about those things. But that's very important what you said. A lot of that stuff comes from our childhood,
It
So,
is. And the good news is that, it's been proven that that whole saying, I got it from my mama, which then people
mhm.
they have to keep it with you. No, epigenetics, we can literally change the neuroplasticity in our brain. So we can,
Right.
that's why the more that we practice, the more that we can actually change that. So when a woman comes to me, one of the number one emotions I find that women have a harder time accessing is, believe it or not, joy. Just
Mhm.
childlike, unadulterated, not for a single thing except you're breathing and God made us, joy. Have a hard
Mhm.
time with joy. That breaks my heart, right?
Mhm.
Um, and the other one is rage, like feeling sacred rage, like not another minute more.
Mhm.
You're not touching my baby. This is my body, back off, whatever it is,
Right.
whether it's about religion, sex, whatever it is, your
Mhm.
children, that people in some cultures have been raised to not actually feel that. Some people think once they start feeling it, they're going to be like a rage head. Well, no, we give ourselves permission. And if your heart's open, and I have
Mhm.
practices to help women access this, the world is better. There'll be less cancer. You'll have less illness, less
Mhm.
inflammation. The more that you let your vessel do what it's supposed to do, your
Mhm.
body, the feelings, the sensations, the five senses are telling us something. And the
Mhm.
more that we are medicating ourselves, whether it be with medicine, drugs, sex, rock and roll, whatever it is,
Mhm.
the more that we anesthetize us to the actual sensations that are letting us know, like, oh, that feels good, or that feels
Right.
bad. Why does it
Mhm.
feel great? Whatever it is.
Mhm.
And life gets a lot more delicious the more expansion we have
Mm.
in our full expression, right?
Yes, that's so true, And I think, at one point, I know at one point in my life, I used to feel guilty for experiencing joy. When
Wow.
you've been so busy, when you're a person who've always given and always done things for other people, and then you decide to do it for yourself, you start to, I don't know where that guilt comes from. It's we shouldn't feel guilty to be able to experience joy, like you said. That's a natural feeling that we're supposed to feel. We shouldn't have to, that shouldn't be in our minds that,
Oh,
okay, I don't think I should be enjoying myself like this.
but you know what that is? I mean, that's actually a mother wound. A
Mm,
mother wound comes from it shows up in feeling guilty for feeling pleasure.
mm, mm.
I don't know if that rings true for you. You may not want to talk about
I could relate to that.
okay.
Yeah, I could
It's
definitely
a it's
relate
a
to that.
mother wound. It really is. It's like it's a feeling guilty for feeling pleasure. And I don't mean just sexual pleasure. I mean
Right.
just for the sheer fact, like you said, that I am here on earth and I feel joy. And I was like that. I'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you an interesting story, and you're welcome to take this. It's on the house.
Okay.
When I first met my first spiritual teacher, embodiment teacher, he pointed out to me, so 11 years ago, after my work with Tony, he said, Sandy, you are addicted to having your heart broken.
Mm,
You are addicted to being disappointed. And so, honey, And so joy doesn't come naturally to you anymore. So we have to get to know the little girl inside of you. Now, the SakredShe Method teaches that there's 10 women that live inside of us, really 20 if you count their toxic side. And they all have their own personality that you get to name them. And so the first one that we need to introduce to the world is your little girl. Like, who is your little girl? My little girl's name is Simone. Like, I do a process with you and a deep meditation, and you will literally see her. You'll like knees and you will talk to her and you'll name her. And she's someone who's like your ride or die. Like, she's with you all the time. Most of us, though, have put her way back there. Like, we don't need to access her, but she is truly the feminine in the whole bunch, because she's curious, because all children are curious, right? She is the one who is precocious. She's the one who's going to ask lots of questions. She's the one that's able just to find joy in just smelling the scent of a candle. She finds joy in everything. She's just, that's who she is. If I was talking to little boys, I'd say the little boy in you. That's the first archetype we need to get to know. And there's no shame or guilt when we're first born. It's not until if you were ever, I don't know, hanging out with little boys and you were like jumping on the trampoline, you didn't have a shirt on because y'all are all 4 years old, didn't realize that and then somebody leans out the window like, "Hey, Sandy, shirt on."
Right.
What comes in? Shame. All of a sudden, they're separate. There's something that's separate. And so there's right. And so we can all go back to our shame story and go, when was the first time that we felt guilt or felt shame? And those two are the lowest level of consciousness that there are, because there's not love and shame. There's no love and guilt, because to your point, it's not like it's hedonistic. Joy is just because we're here. Joy is no other reason than we're here. Now, happiness is a little more conditional, but joy is not.
Right.
So what I did is, the practice is this. He said, I want you to skip for 10 minutes a day for 30 days. Out loud in public. I want you to skip. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm not doing that. And he goes, you're going to stay in this program, you're going to skip. So he gave me masculine leadership, and I was like, oh, I kind of like that. I kind of like somebody telling me what to do that I trusted. So I'm like, he's going to, I promise on the other side of this, you will be rewiring your nervous system, that you will not die if you actually show the world what joy is. And there literally is, from 11 years ago, I have a folder in Google Drive of me skipping for 10, when my friends were recording me going, God, I could literally overhear one of my friends going, oh my God, this is so stupid. What is she doing? and most of them have been my clients too. I might say, you're welcome very much. You know what I mean? But I was scared to death to genuinely allow my little girl to feel and play. And so, when's the last time you played? When is the last time you played? And and therapy, which I'm not a therapist and don't proclaim to be one. In fact, I think sometimes therapy can hold us back. I have a whole philosophy around that from my own experience. And I left one abusive relationship, did a lot of therapy with this beautiful Christian counselor who I love, but she didn't teach me anything about trauma or patterns. So as soon as I got out of that 2-year cycle, I wasn't dating, three times a week in therapy. I started dating again, ended up in a very similar relationship, which is how I ended up in front of Tony, which I'm grateful for the relationship, but it was humiliating because I went from one abusive situation to a more covert abusive situation. And because no one taught me about the nervous system, no one taught me about trauma, no one taught me about patterns. And so just talking about it is not going to heal things. It helps us to a certain point. But if we really want everlasting change, we have to rewire the nervous system. We have to. So 10 minutes of skipping is just another way, is an embodiment practice. So many people think that feminine embodiment is just about the sensual side of it. And for me, it's not. It's like slowing down, enjoying the 5 senses in some way, using your body as a way to express yourself, of course. And of course, we can take that into the bedroom and talk about that. And of course, we do in my more advanced students, but I'm just talking about on your everyday. Will you allow yourself to when you cry, do you say, I'm sorry, I'm crying, and you wipe your tears? Or will you allow those big, beautiful toxins leaving your body? Will you let it fall down your cheeks and mascara smear, and let it fall down your neck, and let it hit your bosom and go down your cleavage and go, you're being baptized with your own sorrow. And if
Mm-hmm.
you allow yourself to feel sorrow, you can allow yourself to feel joy, because they literally are opposite sides of the same coin.
And look at the relief you're giving on the relief you're doing to your nervous system.
Exactly,
You
sister.
know,
100%. Yes.
yeah, because we for some reason we just hold those things in, and once you release it, you
Mm.
just feel like a whole new person. And that comes from getting to know yourself. I know for me, I talk about, and I was talking about this in the last episode about self-awareness. I had to sit down with myself and get to know myself and
Yeah.
why I behave and why I was with things that triggered me. I had to work on those things, you know.
Amen. Yeah.
And that's the thing. If we don't work on those things, we don't know to be able to, you know, give our nervous system some relief. And and that
Yep.
and it comes from, and people don't understand how important it is to really be self-aware, you know. To,
Well, you just rolled out the red carpet for something. That is the first module that we do, and all my courses. And I know that we have a special offer for your listeners too, for our She Rises, which is like our low cost offering, because
mm-hmm,
awareness is where it's at. If we don't know what we know, then how in
mm-hmm,
the world are we going to shift? And how are we even going to know what we desire in a new job or and a relationship? And so
exactly.
the triad of change, and you'll love this, that you may geek out on this because I know I did. It's
Right.
like, first off, we have to be aware.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing, we have to acknowledge it. So when two people come together and we acknowledge it, that it
Mm-hmm.
becomes real in the quantum field and here on in the 3D. And then the
Right.
next thing, the next A is acceptance. Because when we accept it, that doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
we tolerate it or we condone it. It means that energetically, then we're there. We open up the possibility for there to be change. So
Mm-hmm.
we call it AAA in our program, and it's the first thing in She Rises that we talk about. And how do you open up your eyes and open up your mind and open up your heart to the possibility that things aren't quite maybe what you thought they were, and understand that you're just living in that matrix place where your brain's just trying to protect yourself. Remember, the brain wants to keep you safe and
That
alive.
safe mode. Yeah.
That's it. That's all
Yeah.
it wants. It doesn't give a damn if you're
Yeah.
happy. It's like danger, danger, and something
Yeah.
that would be perfectly safe,
Yeah.
like a healthy relationship, to someone who only knows toxicity, that's going to feel like it's danger. So we have to rewire,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we do within our program. And so that's why a lot of people come to me with money wounds. And money wounds, by the way, are feminine wounds. It's not
Mm-hmm.
masculine wounds. And because money is receiving. When you,
Mm-hmm.
the feminine is receiving, when you are feel you're worthy of receiving love, receiving abundance, receiving, cash and contracts and babies and, being pregnant or whatever it is, when you heal that, then
Mm-hmm.
you find energetically those 3 A's. You're aware of it, you acknowledge it, we work together, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's acceptance. And so it never fails. I mean, I can tell you, when I am, I stumble, fumble, and fall all the time, but then I'm able to call my own foul, take a look at it, just like you're saying. I mean,
Yep.
those are the only kind of people I want in my life. I don't
Right.
really hang around in my closest circle to people who aren't aware.
Right.
And I know when I'm helping women with if they're single, with their relationship visions,
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness and emotional intelligence in a partner needs to be in the top few characteristics. Because
Tell
someone
me
who's not
about it.
self-aware, someone who is not emotionally intelligent,
Mm-hmm.
cannot feel empathy.
They
And
can't.
if you can't feel empathy, I
I
mean,
don't.
especially for the two of us, who I know you're a highly feeling person,
Mm-hmm.
empathic person, it is. Talk about a feminine wound. They can't see us. They can't understand us. They're not going
Mm-mm.
to make us feel safe, right?
Yep.
And they're
Yep.
definitely not going to, so we're
Yep.
doomed. So I
Yeah.
can tell you, if I was doing it all over again,
Mm-hmm.
I could say, because even with what I know, and when I called in my partner now,
Mm-hmm.
we knew each other for 111 days and we got married. It's a beautiful soul. And
Mm-hmm.
because of his childhood stuff, it is difficult for him to, when it's something about him, he's great as long as the thing isn't about him, but it's about him. Now he's working on that now.
Right.
Again, as the oracle, stinging him back to consciousness, bringing it to his awareness,
Mm-hmm.
he's healing those pieces. And that's the gift of intimate partnerships. We will
Yeah.
heal that last 5%. in conscious partnership. And I did attract someone in my life that was willing to have me and him with me. Hey, I know that's not your higher self, what's going on. But it
Right.
was painful for me in the first, kind of after 3 years, I started noticing, I'm like, wow, what's going on here? Like, what's feeling off? I couldn't put my finger on it. And
Mm-hmm.
it took with the help of a mentor to be able to go, he's not feeling into you. He's
Mm-hmm.
not feeling into you. He's great as long as the upsetness is not about him. But
Right.
because of his stuff, he's given me permission to share just enough. We teach together sometimes,
Right.
but that, I got to tell you, that was painful for me to see my best friend, my lover, my everything, to turn his back on me in some of the hardest times, because he had done something that really was a betrayal between an agreement that we had. And
Mm-hmm.
we're still working through it. And I
Right.
teach it. So, I'm still working that stuff out. There's, either I'm working that stuff out and I bring it forth in my communities, but we're always growing, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
always here. Again, back to what I originally said when we came on, is this is Earth School, and I
Right.
signed up for this. I believe that I'm here to go through these things, alchemize them, and bring it to the world, to whomever wants to, listen and pay attention to it. And but like I said, if I can save
Right.
anybody, any heartbreak in your audience, is I know so much about relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
even I just literally just upgraded some of my courses to add this piece about emotional intelligence, and like an emotional intelligence quiz, because it is nectar.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, it
It
is.
is.
Right. And
Really
even
is.
it is. And it's like, even how someone, if you want a man of faith, or you want a man who's spiritual, depending on what your belief is, you
Mm-hmm.
want someone who believes in God. Well, what does that mean? You've got to get specific,
Right. You
because it's going to be different for me than it is for you.
right.
It's for her or
Exactly.
him.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can go on and on about that, like what I've
Yeah.
experienced
Yeah,
myself and
because
others.
if you're emotionally aware of yourself, it like you said, it changes your reaction to certain things. And this can go on to so many different things. We have a lot of men in prison because of them being triggered by something,
Yes.
or we
Yes.
have a lot of women who were abused, and then you have women who abuse men psychologically because of
100%.
something. So this self-awareness is so important. When you try to, you start fixing those things, and you start working on yourself, and saying, like, you find one thing, like you can say to yourself, like like I was telling you earlier, I had to sit myself down
Yep.
and ask myself, why are you always angry about the fact that this person has that? So what I did was I started researching it, and I started, getting
I
to
love
know.
it.
Yeah, I had to research, why is she, I had to learn these things, and then I had to fix those things too at the same time.
Right. Sure.
And yeah, so things don't trigger me as much as they used to before, because now I'm aware of what triggers
Yeah.
me, and what, so it's very important. You really have to really work on yourself, and people don't understand. Even and I'm what I'm going to say is, people, nobody's perfect. Everybody's, but nobody's perfect. But if you can take those traumas that you both have, and give each other that safe space to be able to express those things, and even know at the same time, this is not really me, but this is the trauma that I went through,
Yes.
and this is
Well,
the
can we stop
trauma
right
I'm
there? That
working.
was like, just freeze frame that.
Yeah.
That is actually, I always say too, and I'll give your listeners a tip: get a baby picture of your partner,
Mm-hmm.
study that baby picture. When you see them acting the fool, know that that 45-year-old man in front of you is really a 7-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know why, the 7-year-old child. Oh, I
Yep.
looked this the other day too. Look at this. Did you know it does this?
Yeah.
Like his hearts come flowing out of
Oh,
it.
look at that. How do you do that?
Yeah, literally, I found that out on the fly. Like, what is happening here? Yeah, like, cool. But that is such a valuable tool. And so when we do workshops, we literally have couples bring in pictures, and then we hold the pictures up, and they're doing an intentional dialogue, and
Mm-hmm.
it does diffuse some things, right? To have that
Mm-hmm.
awareness. And I do want to go back to the feminine, masculine energetics around what you said, if I can just like overlay that and wrap it up.
Okay.
Self-awareness is the intuition. The self-awareness, and a man or a woman is your feminine. You
Mm-hmm.
you having the desire to fix it or to heal it is actually your masculine. So so you see how they go together. If you
Right.
were just like in discovery mode and learning it all and but not applying it, you would
Right.
be living in the art form of the feminine. But because, and you also said something that I'm going to actually like correct, for lack of a better word. You said, and I have to fix it. I want to say that that negates the fact that you had any agency in it. You didn't. You chose. You got to fix it, and you did it. I don't want you to
Yep.
take anything away from the fact that you chose to go do something. Because I got to tell you, girl, there are many people who I've worked with that they fight me on this. They pay me, and then our program, like, it didn't work. And the first thing, which doesn't happen very often, but when it does, I'd like to talk to them, and I'll be like,
It takes work. You got to do it yourself.
yeah, you got
Nobody could do it. Nobody
yeah.
could do it for you.
I can provide you all this material,
Yeah.
and I could be here and coach you because I'm in there
Right.
to think with you. I'm there.
Right.
And yeah, but it takes, gosh, I mean, at the end of the day, we have to, and this really helps too, why I like to use meditation as well, and the feelings, because if we can literally close our eyes and embody and feel what it would feel like when we become the version of ourselves that overcomes the eating disorder, that overcomes the, wanting to abuse our partner, or, yell at our kids or whatever it is. And we actually anchor that into our nervous system. That is when we really kind of everlasting change. Again, it comes back to the embodiment. It's not just about around dancing on the floor and being all sexy. It's
Right.
you literally see yourself on the other side of learning what your triggers are, and then being able to teach them to your partner, because we all have a hot button and a cold button, a lukewarm button. And the more we can get to know each other, the better.
That's true. That is so true. I'm telling you. I've in these last couple of, I have to say, since I started this podcast, I've learned so much from a lot of guests, and right now I'm reading a book on how to master your emotions, and I'm constantly. It's a constant thing that you're always learning.
Yes.
Always learning. It's not something that you just stop learning. You constantly keep learning about yourself, and then you start to see the greatness in yourself, as you're learning, you're sharing it with other people. And sometimes, because I was like you said earlier, that who am I to tell somebody how to do this and how to do that, and I said to myself, well, I can tell them through my experiences.
Yes. Yeah.
And as I'm telling them through my experiences, I just keep educating myself and keep sharing, as I'm going along. It's you sometimes we are our worst enemy. We could be our own worst enemy sometimes. And sometimes we have to, as this guy said the other day, he said, sometimes we got to get out of our own way.
So true. So true. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, it's why we learn to make friends with ourselves, to your point.
Yeah.
And I like to say, and I know the book you're talking about, instead of like, there's a way to master our emotions by actually being able to experience our emotions. And if we can experience them, then what happens is that instead of trying to control them, we acknowledge them. We do it triple. We're aware of them. We acknowledge them. We accept them, and it just floats away. And especially if you're a more feminine being, you're going to feel a lot more emotions as someone who's stoic and in their masculine. And I have a feeling that when you're really going and you're not holding space like you're holding space for me now, and you're masculine, that you are a highly feeling being, and we need more of that, because that's the artist in you, right? So yeah, I say like mastering our emotions is really that's more of a masculine way to look at it, which I find fascinating. It's more like, how can I experience my emotions and not let them master me? Right.
Yeah. It's like, let them take control of me.
Right.
I'm like, wait a
Tasmanian
minute.
devil. Like, what
I'm like, wait a minute, it's not me.
Right, but it is you. But it is you, right? It's one of those 10 women I talked about, right? It's like, there she is, and then we love her.
That's why I was saying. I said, it's that other woman.
You're a fast learner. I love it. It's so fun. It's so fun.
I'm really not like that, but it's her.
It's her. Exactly. We have a name for her. Her name is like Celeste. And then, but what's fun too, you're fun. You'll teach this to your partner. You're like, because we have the champion, we have the shy, reluctant enigma, and she's the one that she's super shy, but yet she really wants to be seen. And
Mm,
and then we have the blissful pleaser, which the sacred side of her is she's mother Gaia. She's nurturing and loving. The toxic
mhm,
side of her, she's codependent AF, and she's always giving to get, and she's
mhm,
passive aggressive, right? And
mhm.
so she looks all sweet and all this, but she hasn't healed those wounds. And so when she's not resourced, she
Right.
shows up like that. And so then we have the let's see, another one I'll bring up. Like the naughty provocateur I teach, and she's the one who's like an advocate. Like she's this advocate for the world. I think
Okay.
Rosa Parks, who like said, "Screw all this, I'm going to the front of the bus." I always use her as an example. She knew for the better good that it was time to break a rule.
I'm
You know what I
laughing
mean?
because I'm thinking about I'm thinking about I think that's one of the personalities of me too.
Oh
Because
well, see,
I get those days where I'd be like, no, like one day, I don't know, I went into this restaurant one day and it was like the it was like a racist situation I was in.
okay,
And they were sitting all the black people in the back and all the white people in the front. So when I
recently.
went in, yeah, I went in there and
Oh,
I said, she tried to sit me to the back, and I said, no, I want to sit up there in the front.
yeah,
That's my other side of me, where
yeah,
where
yeah.
I ain't going for the bullshit. And it's like, no,
Yes, yeah,
you
and
know, it,
that's that. No, you would love this. It's like it's
mm-hmm,
so fun. I got goosebumps like that because that she's like, no. I mean, we know.
mm-hmm,
I'm thinking about is it Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj. Like I don't know her, but I know that there was something happened a couple years ago. She was like speaking out about COVID or something like that, and whatever your belief system is, she's
uh-huh,
like, no, I'm going to, I am who I am. I said what I said, kind of a thing. And it's like,
mm,
it's that version of us that is like the mama bear. Like, you could be a mama bear for your kids. You could
that's
be a mama bear for your race. You can be a mama bear for women. You can be a mama bear for men. It's like, no, not another minute more. Like, I'm going to break this rule and I'm doing it because it's for a purpose, right?
right.
Um,
Mm-hmm,
the other thing is that, when we're talking about the deep soulful siren, the deep soulful siren is the version of us that yearns, that longs for love, that's
mm-hmm,
longing for a new car, longing for to touch 12 million lives,
mm-hmm,
I want to touch with SakredShe, like longing. And that to some people may go like, well, that's not healthy to long. Well, of
right.
course, it's our deepest desire. When
Mm-hmm,
it gets toxic though, and we need that yearn. You can even feel it when I'm
yeah,
that yearn. It's
yeah,
like, yes, it
yeah.
gives you strive for. Where
Mm-hmm.
it's toxic is it when you're never satisfied. Like
Oh,
you get it, you're never satisfied. Now, the feminine in all of us thinks there's more. If there's 32 flavors of Baskin Robbins, we're like, why is there not 33? Like that's the
mm-hmm,
feminine. If our
right.
heart's full and our cup's full, but if it's, we all know those people. We all know the
Mm-hmm,
version of us is like you get the thing that your partner gives you flowers, but you're like, they're carnations. Like I don't want
mm-hmm, right.
right?
Not,
Yep.
you're not
Yeah.
satisfied.
Yeah.
I know some people like that.
Totally. So that
Mm-hmm,
DSS, the deep soulful siren,
mm-hmm,
I know for me, I longed for community and family for so long because I didn't really have one growing up. And so
mm-hmm,
if until I healed a lot of these wounds, I would allow myself to get walked over. I would want to be loved so badly. My DSS, her name is Tammy, like I
mm-hmm,
allowed her to like get love in all the wrong places. I would
mm-hmm,
allow like with boys when I was younger and men when I was older, and then maybe getting business deals that weren't really good for me, and I would
mm-hmm,
give too much
mm-hmm,
without boundaries.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's a little taste of the 10 different women that live inside of us.
Yeah.
It's fun because they're
Yeah.
really there, and we generally will live with
Mm-hmm.
three primary, but they all live within us, and
Yeah.
so. I want to get you to know like our joyful playmate is our little girl. And so
Mm-hmm.
she needs to be out there swinging. She needs to be skipping. She needs to
Yeah.
curious about all of the things.
I
So
always tap into my little girl all the time. Sometimes I could be a big kid sometimes.
I bet you can.
I,
I bet you can. I can feel that. But have you
yeah.
named her? But have you named her? What's her
Yeah.
name? What's her name?
Well, I call her Sasha. That's what I call
Okay, there you go. See?
Yeah, and I get those moments where I'm like I could be like a big kid, and do things that a lot of the things that I wasn't able to do as a kid. I tap into now sometimes,
There you go.
and it's okay to, like you said, it's okay to have those different feelings.
We need to. And
Yes.
God gave us these versions of us.
Yeah.
I like to put them in these little archetypes to make it easy
Yeah.
to metabolize. And they all have like their own jukebox for a playlist and all the things. But listen, again, we cannot feel joy if we
Yeah.
can't feel the sorrow. And, sacred
Right.
rage will allow us sometimes to make a movement, sometimes anger. I mean, listen, I'll give you another tip. A lot of times women will pick a fight because we're wanting energy from our partner. If we feel like they're not paying attention to us, what do kids do? They will like, they're like
to get
tug
it to get attention. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so so you better believe I've got women around the world, pitching a sacred temper tantrum. I'm like, give yourself 2 minutes and I want you just to throw yourself on the bed and because I mean you're giggling, but what happens is that you move it through you and then you end up laughing.
Yeah.
And you also acknowledge the fact that you're being a little bratty. And that's okay.
Yeah. I listened to what is her name? You ever, Mel, what is her name? Mel. She has a podcast.
Mel Wells. Mel Wells?
I can't think of her last name, but she has a podcast and I love her podcast because her podcast is on.
Oh, not Mel Wells, Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins.
I think that's her last name. Yeah.
With the
glasses.
Mel Robbins.
And she posted something on Instagram one day where she went into the doctor's office. She came out and her car door was open and she left it open the whole time for about 45 minutes. She said, what do you do when you, and I could relate to that because I remember doing something like that before. And she said, what do? You just laugh at yourself and just keep on going, So sometimes
and give yourself a big old break. The same break. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because sometimes we could be hard on ourselves, and for the littlest, simplest things, and sometimes we just have to, forgive ourselves and just keep going. Don't hold on to those, or don't judge yourself. Don't hold on because sometimes people have a tendency to do that too. They judge themselves and then they hold on to it and they blame themselves for certain things that might have happened. But, you can't continue to hold on to those things. You got to forgive yourself and move on.
True. And if you find yourself as the human in us, you find out that you're not, I mean, this is actually where you go back to the AAA. You acknowledge it. You're aware of it. You acknowledge it. And then you'll literally just watch it until another emotion comes. And again, because remember what was that saying? When we repress something, it's going to come forward. So when the more that we actually try to hold back, it's going to it's just the nature of physics. So we want to make sure that we acknowledge whatever that is and go, oh, there I am again. There I am feeling sad. But again, I was sharing this the other day. And if we feel an emotion for more than 90 seconds, it's because we've gotten addicted to that emotion. So we can get addicted to joy. We can get addicted to sorrow. Our first emotion is like we get angry. It's because we like the dopamine rush that we get from that. And you can get addicted to that. You can get addicted to being happy.
Exactly. Yeah. I've been getting addicted to being happy lately. I have to admit that.
I like it. Love is the drug. Love is the drug, right?
Yeah. I'm all about, as a matter of fact, I'm at the point where my life, and I've always been this way. I never really wanted to be around any negative energy because I'm not a negative person. At least I don't think I am. But I've always say no.
I've gotten to know you now for the last hour. I would say I don't think so, but I think I'm the type of person where if I see a homeless person on the street, I don't look at him no different than I would see a CEO of a big corporation. I try to treat everybody the same. I treat everybody the same because number one, you don't know what went on in a person's life, and you don't know what they might have been through or whatever the case may be. And I try to stay away from just judging a person. I accept them for who they are and where they're at that moment, because everybody has a opportunity to change. And so and I wish the whole world, if the world was like that, the world would be a better place. But unfortunately, everybody's not like that. So, but well, but the more they talk to women like us, they realize that that what we want is to love where we are and know that we're always here to evolve and shift, right? We have to love
Right.
where we are and know that we're not broken and that
Mm-hmm.
we're being called for something greater. And I think
Right.
that's where it was, is we as influencers here in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and we're here to let other women know, and men too, that hey, we're inviting us all to come to the table. We're going to come
Mm-hmm.
to the circle. And this is actually where, you and I talked earlier, what a beautiful conversation we've had. We've covered a lot of info. Is
Mm-hmm.
we as women can actually help our men in our life
Oh
heal,
yeah.
not even our own partners, but men in general,
Mm-hmm.
hold space for them and let them know that maybe they had a mom who was overly emotional, like I mentioned about my mom. And,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, what did we do? We choose a partner that's very much like the one that we're trying to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was very introverted and didn't talk a lot. And my husband, was kind of like that too. And
Mm-hmm.
that to me is deafening, because I want to be seen, because my little girl wasn't seen a lot when I was a kid. So if he goes stoic and he stonewalls me and is cold, I can feel that part of me, that the little bit of a trigger. Now I can regulate myself, but I
Mm-hmm.
do believe in partnership, that there's a responsibility in a healthy relationship to help each other co-regulate. So if
Mm-hmm.
my partner knows that that's something that will help me spiral. It's not his responsibility to heal me, but
Mm-hmm.
I do believe in a healthy relationship as our responsibility not to do the thing or
Mm-hmm.
say the thing that we know will trigger them. For example, I'll just be simple, like cooking. If we know our partner is allergic to MSG, will we take them to a cheap Chinese restaurant?
Right. No, no, nope.
Or, I mean, not if we love them. So why in
Right.
the world will we like want to
Right.
trigger them? It's the same thing. It's like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it really is that simple. And I'm just as guilty of it. I know he's got his stuff about me, and I trigger him so much.
Yeah.
And if I'm not
Yeah.
resourced, if I haven't slept well, or if I'm frustrated or whatever it is,
Yeah.
I'm trust me, I'm no saint.
Well, it's good that you guys give each other that safe space, and
Definitely.
that's what's important. You give each other that space. You know what your triggers are, or you know what deep rooted issues you might have, but you still able to work together and still give each other that safe space, instead of taking it out on a person for feeling the way they feel. Let me feel the way I feel, without
Exactly.
you going off or you screaming out or whatever the case may be. Let me feel that, and that's what we need. We have to give people, even like in relationships, like you were saying, we have to give people that safe space to where they can express those things, because it's a constant, constantly working on it. Nobody's perfect. That's the way I look at it.
I agree. And I think too, I mean, I think there also comes a time, I mean, for me to get in partnership, I needed to be in partnership with someone who was already was saying it. I mean, we've been together. He's a second relationship, right? Down the
Right.
line. So my deepest relationship, but who was open to getting help if we needed help.
Mm,
I say anyone who's in a newer relationship or starting to date, that needs to be one of the requirements. Like they're
mm,
open to getting help in some
mm,
way, shape, or form. That it's not going to be this Archie Bunker, like I am, or pie, I am who I am kind of a thing. Like, no, I mean, I must be with someone who's growth oriented, and we have an agreement. If that ever stops,
mm,
then I'm, I don't mean like personal development growing, but I mean, if we have an issue and we workshop it, if we need help, if we can't do it together, then we go get help. And if he ever says no, obviously I'm not going to be out the door right away, but that was our agreement. I mean, very
mhm.
much, because I do not want to live in drama, trauma, and with someone who's not willing to actually help each other move to the next level of
Yeah,
love
that's true.
and
That's right.
devotion,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
being bold and being boundaried. I mean, there's many women,
yeah.
oh, he changed his mind. I mean, I was that woman. Remember Tammy I mentioned?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
but he,
Yep.
everybody knows I want to adopt, and and I bring it up, and then they all want to do it until they get me. That was my old story. And then
Right.
I'm like, wait a minute, what about my dreams? Like, what just happened here?
Mm-hmm.
But that's up to me to know my yeses and know my nos. That's for my
True.
mess, and to go like, hey, wait a minute,
Yeah.
and also be able to look myself in the mirror and go, oh my God, here I am, this
Mm,
relationship embodiment expert, and oh God, am I leaving this relationship? That just like
mm,
bringing this up, like, oh my God, there's shame there. And for
yeah.
me, all these little things I've been mentioning this hour we've been together is, these are things I think about. Luckily, we're not there, but
Right.
these are honest conversations, because they're
Yeah, they are.
they're
They are
real.
honest. Yeah, they're real conversations. I was married for 17 years. I'm divorced now. I got divorced back in the year 2000, and stayed in the relationship solely for the kids and for the finances, because I kept saying to myself, "Oh my God, if I leave him, how I'm gonna, I'm not gonna
Of course.
afford to take care of my kids."
The real thing.
Yeah, and it got, but I wasn't happy
Right.
in the marriage, and my kids was seeing it too. So
Of course.
it got to the point where I was like, you know what, my happiness is more important than, money. It's more important than,
Agree. Yep.
my kids seeing me miserable, even if I got to start all over again. And that's just exactly what I did. I had to start all over again, because I didn't want to be in a relationship where I was miserable, you know.
Well, I think
And
that, and I honor you for that. For that,
yeah,
go back to self-awareness, what you talked about
yeah,
here. You were
yeah.
aware, and you also, not even self-aware, you were also aware of how it was affecting your kids.
Yeah, it was affecting my kids because it were days I wouldn't even come home. I stayed a night at my girlfriend's house. The kids would call me, "Mom, are you coming home
Mm.
tomorrow?" I couldn't continue to do that. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna have to, you know, get out of this
Big love to
relationship.
you. I respect that
Yeah,
so much.
yeah. And
Really
it
do.
wasn't easy,
Of
because
course.
after being with someone for 17 years, which is a long time, we just grew apart. And I was, I can say I loved him, but I wasn't in love. And those are two different things,
They are. They are.
If once I got to the point where I felt like I wasn't in love, then I was like, no, I can't keep faking this.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I got to do what's best for me at this point.
Yeah, it's
So,
interesting too. I honor that too. And I think there's, I meet a lot of women when they're at that place where they think it's all over. And I just say, I mean, I've helped women who are divorced get back together with their partners. I've also helped women when they start working with me. They're like, wait a minute, this is a really toxic relationship. And I've been invited to divorce parties. I've been invited to remarriage parties. I've been invited to weddings, baby
mhm,
showers, all the things. But I just say, give me 90 days. Unless you're in a very abusive relationship, then I'm like, I'm going to help you get out.
right.
But let's see what happens. At least then you'll know, because it's easy to fall out of love. You'll fall out of love a million times, and
Mhm,
values, and that's why the art of selection,
mhm,
especially for those that are single out there. I don't care how old you are. If
mhm,
I was single again, I just turned 53 last week, and so
mhm,
I think about if I was single again, like I mentioned earlier, you
mhm,
and I both agree, high five, that
mhm.
emotional intelligence is going to be high on the list, because that
Oh,
includes empathy, self-awareness, all these things. I mean, it's like this perfect cocktail.
mhm.
Oh my God, this partner of mine is going to be here for the long haul, through the ups and the downs, and again, willing to do the work.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
hard. I mean, and willing to not live on their feelings. I mean, as
Mm.
much as I love my feelings, I mean, they will betray me. Yeah, and I think there's something to have the hard conversations. I mean, again, I've
Mhm.
been really preaching about this lately. Is again, everything comes from my own personal experience.
Mhm.
Years ago, I didn't talk about this much because I didn't know I needed to, but now
Mm.
it's my own experience. So, how we enter a relationship, how
Mhm.
we maintain it, how we repair it, even
Mhm.
how we leave a relationship, they all are equally important, all
Mhm.
of them. And that's not just with your romantic partner. It's even how, how do we meet, you and I? How are we maintaining it here? If there's a repair, a rupture, how do we repair it? How do we even leave it? How do we say goodbye? How do we, once we do the broadcast, is it just like a goodbye and never see you again?
Mhm.
One and done kind of a thing. Like, how do we actually maintain relationship? Uh,
Right.
how do we maintain the art of relating? Because
Mhm.
so many of us think relationships, and we always think about our love interest, but to me, it's like, how do we treat the butcher? How are we
Mhm.
treating the person at the post office? How are we treating the flight attendant?
Right. Yeah.
How are we treating our neighbor? Do we even
Mm.
know our neighbors? Most of us don't even know our neighbors.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and then you don't want to, and then another thing is you don't want to bring that past experience into a new relationship.
Yeah.
I've never been in that situation, but I've seen some women that I came across who would block their blessings because they would
Mhm.
they would bring their past relationship into the new relationship.
All
Like
the
if
time.
you had a husband or a boyfriend who abused you, and then you meet some guy who's the most loving guy who's willing to give you anything in the world, and you mistreat him, it's like you're blocking your blessing. You can't bring your past into I mean, it's probably easier said than done.
Oh, I was going to say,
It's
that's
probably
right.
easier.
And those are all my clients, because that's what
Yeah.
we do. I mean,
Yeah.
we do that. And because
Yeah.
why? Because it really is more of a, that's why I like to work with the subconscious,
Right.
because it's easy for us to say that, to your point.
Yeah.
Like I thought that I had healed some things, and then here I am in this relationship, and I'm like, oh, there's that wad of hair. There
Mm,
she is. Let's go tease that apart, because our subconscious mind is always going to go back to what's familiar
that's true.
until I have more years of a healthy relationship versus all
Hmm.
the years of not. You
Right.
better leave. And that's why, I teach partner practice, and I teach,
Hmm.
because it's so easy. It's so easy for somebody to say, why don't you just leave him? Like,
Hmm.
being mistreated. But if your nervous system is wired to being mistreated, just like
Hmm.
I mentioned earlier, my nervous system was wired to being disappointed. What does my subconscious mind do?
Goes
I'm
back
going
right.
to go to the very man
Yeah.
who will obviously disappoint me
Right.
till
Yeah.
I heal
Yeah.
that wound. It's
Yeah.
deep. And
Yeah.
so, I'm not just here to teach you how to like
Yeah.
talk to a man. I'm here like, we're going to go down and dirty and
Yeah.
all the things that,
Hmm.
because I want you to bring as little as possible to your next relationship. And if
Hmm.
you do happen to bring some of that residue, that you also have the self-awareness, and you also have the practice of knowing, hey, and call your own foul, and then be able to work it out together. And you go back
Hmm.
to repairing that, because we will bring it. That's just
Hmm.
the nature of relationship.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it's how much are we bringing, and are we
Right.
willing to actually even notice it? So that's when you know that you're moving and grooving. That's when you know that you're doing the work, when
Hmm.
you can even notice it, that you
Yeah.
did it.
And like you said, you got to acknowledge it. You gotta acknowledge it. And
Yeah.
then once you acknowledge it and accept it, then it's time to start working on it.
Yeah. Then you have parts flowing out of your
Yeah.
there you see, you triple A that, and then you'll
Yeah.
have that too.
Oh my God. This was a wonderful conversation,
Oh, I
Sandy.
adore you. Yours has been, what a gift. Thank
Oh,
you. Yeah.
thank you so much. It's funny because this podcast has built up my confidence too.
I see
And
that.
yeah,
Sure.
it's built up my confidence because I was like, man, is people gonna listen to me? Oh, what do I got to offer? But it's helped me, it's helped me internally a lot,
Mhm.
by
Yeah.
having guests on like yourself and us conversing and sharing each other's stories and
Yes.
educating each other, So this was a pleasure. I really enjoyed having you on this podcast. And I just love your energy. You just got this vibrant energy. I'm telling you. It's like I went from the earlier podcast to this podcast, and it seemed like you just lit everything up over there.
Oh my God, it's the biggest compliment ever. I mean, considering that, remember, I mean, I was like a dude 11 years ago. I mean, can you believe that? I'll have to see like a picture of me back then. It was like, interesting. I mean, it was really not
Right.
that I looked any different.
Right.
I probably looked younger, but it was the way I carried myself.
Yeah.
I wasn't as joyful. I wasn't as fun. I mean, hell, I thought I was going to be disappointed every step of the way. Of course, I
Yeah.
was reserved. So that's a
Right.
huge, huge compliment. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it
Yeah.
looks like you came a long way, so I'm happy for you.
Thank you. I am, sister. So thank you for having me on. And I love sharing the work, and going deeper with everyone. So I look forward
Okay.
to yeah, I mean, if I may I share, like, I know you probably have the show notes, but may I share a few things before we get out of here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yep. This is
So
this is your space. This is your time.
I love it.
Do
And by
whatever
the
you
way,
want.
your name, let's talk about this, couldn't be any more perfect. That is like, I hope you trademark that if you can, because I think that's
Yeah, I
gold.
did.
You
I
did.
did.
Yes,
Yep.
sister. Yes.
I'm like, let's
So
talk.
good.
This is a space for people to come and talk and just release and whatever they got on their mind, they could
It
just
is
talk
so
about.
good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Good for you for trademark. Of course you did. You're an amazing businesswoman. So
Thank you.
yes, I'm on Instagram as a great way to catch me. Also my website. I have different ways you can work with me. A great way though is a really low cost is the Awaken the Woman, the Feminine Within. And so we have a link for that. Also the quiz,
We'll have all the
all the
links
things. Yeah.
at the bottom of this. Yeah.
Yeah, sandysembler.com/quiz. If you haven't taken it, please do.
Okay.
It will send you down this portal of, really is that is free. Tap into that. It'll give you a lot of education, and
Okay.
there's lots of different ways to work with me. But that's just a great way to find me. I do a lot of fun teachings on Instagram, so that's just a good way from social media. But all the handles, I'm all out there. But first, I just want to say this was like a really fun hour. It went by like that.
Yeah,
And
I
we
know.
covered a lot. Talk about a smorgasbord. I mean, we talked about all kinds of things.
Yeah, everything.
That was, you're
Time fly.
amazing.
Yeah, time fly when you're having fun, you know.
I've loved this. So thank you again. And what an honor, and
Yeah,
kudos to you for all your success and getting the word out there, because we need women, to your point, and men too. But since
yeah,
we're chatting, it's nice to give us permission to go, it's okay to be a hot mess, as long as
yeah.
we're grounded and we know who we are and we own it,
That's
then
right.
so be it. So
Yeah.
kudos to you. I see you, and I thank
Thank
you for
you.
seeing me. Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you. And I'm my editor, make sure all your links are
Yeah,
at the
sounds
bottom of
good.
this interview. So you'll know how to get out and reach out to Sandy. And for all the listeners, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. It don't cost you anything to subscribe, and you're getting all this good information. And this podcast is all about healing people who are struggling with all kinds of issues. So until then, we'll talk to you next week. On that note, you guys have a blessed day.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye bye, Sandy.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.